The first cough didn't sound dangerous. Not in a place like Rikers, where noise was constant and suffering blended into the background. But that morning, in a dorm packed shoulder to shoulder with men who couldn't step 2 feet without brushing someone else's arm, the sound cut through the air like a warning siren no one wanted to hear. If stories like this fascinate you, hit subscribe, because this one only gets darker. Before the rest of New York understood what COVID-19 really was, Rikers Island felt it closing in. Officers whispered about a mystery sickness. Inmates traded rumors across tiers. And inside Unit 3 East, the panic built quietly, like steam under a locked lid. The dorm was overcrowded long before the virus arrived. Bunks pushed so close they felt welded together. One bathroom for dozens of men. A single phone everyone touched. Air so stale it felt recycled. People joked that if one guy caught a cold, the entire dorm caught it by lunchtime. But this wasn't a cold. Not anymore. When the first detainee spiked a fever, he pressed his call button over and over. No officer came. He paced, sweating through his shirt, asking others to stay back, until he collapsed against his bunk. Someone yelled for help. No one arrived. By the time staff finally entered the unit, masks were scarce, gloves were reused, and nobody seemed to know what protocol they were supposed to follow. Word spread fast, the virus is in here. From that point, the descent was rapid. Men woke up coughing, shaking, struggling to breathe. Whole rows of bunks sounded like hospital wards without the doctors. Officers began calling out sick in huge numbers. Those still working looked terrified, doing rounds with their sleeves pulled over their hands. Some admitted it outright, this place is a ticking bomb. The medical clinic became overwhelmed within days. Sick detainees were told to wait their turn. Some waited hours. Others waited days. Test kits were limited. Treatment rooms were full. A few officers tried to help, but they were stretched too thin, covering multiple units, running on fear and exhaustion. Rumors hit the dorm like another wave, outside advocates demanding releases, city officials debating emergency measures, lawyers pushing to get pretrial detainees out before the virus turned Rikers into a mass casualty site. For the first time in years, men who assumed they'd be forgotten heard a different kind of message floating in: people are fighting for you. People want you out. But the releases weren't coming fast enough. And inside the dorms, the virus moved faster than any paperwork. Every hour brought new symptoms, new panic, new men too weak to stand. Then came the moment that shook 3 East to its core. One morning, detainees woke to find their unit completely unsupervised. No officers at the desk. No footsteps in the hall. No keys jangling. Nothing. Just silence, thick, unnatural, and wrong. That was the first sign that control at Rikers wasn't just slipping. It was breaking. The silence didn't last. It cracked open when someone hit the call button and heard nothing, not even static. Men stood from their bunks, unsure whether to panic or savor the rare moment without authority watching them. But everyone understood the truth: if officers weren't showing up, it meant things outside that dorm were far worse than they'd been told. When a lone sergeant finally appeared, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. His mask sagged under his chin, his eyes were bloodshot, and his voice was thin. "Stay calm," he said, though nobody in that room believed calm was an option. Rumors instantly lit up the dorm, entire shifts calling out sick, hallways unstaffed, officers collapsing, medical teams overwhelmed. Some men whispered that the jail had already lost control, the administration just hadn't admitted it yet. Every 8 seconds, a new emotion cracked the surface. Fear. Suspicion. Anger. Helplessness. By week 2 of the outbreak, the hidden machinery inside Rikers started showing its gears. Unofficial hierarchies took over. In every dorm, a few detainees had long-standing influence, men who normally negotiated phone time or settled disputes. Now they were the ones rationing cleaning supplies, organizing sick call lists, and deciding who got the handful of masks that arrived once every few days. It wasn't about power anymore. It was about survival. Officers, too, were living a different kind of pressure. Some admitted privately that they were terrified to go home and infect their families. Others had symptoms because calling out meant abandoning their posts and leaving entire units unsupervised. One officer confided to an inmate he trusted, "This place is falling apart. They don't have the staff, they don't have the plan, and they don't want the public to see the truth." Meanwhile, outside forces were tightening the political noose. Advocacy groups blasted the city for failing to protect inmates. Public defenders demanded immediate releases for people held on low-level charges. The mayor's office scrambled to defend decisions that shifted daily. Every headline made its way back inside, carried by the handful of radios still working. For many detainees, hope became a dangerous thing, too bright, too slippery. Then came the unexpected discovery that rippled through the facility. A detainee in 3 East found a stack of paperwork in the hallway trash, documents detailing emergency release recommendations. Names, charges, medical vulnerabilities, lists that should have been locked away. He brought them back into the dorm, eyes wide, voice shaking. Some men were shocked to see their own names on the list. Others realized they weren't on it, despite being older, sicker, or more at risk. The room shifted instantly. Why were some being pushed for release while others were ignored? Who controlled the criteria? And more importantly, who was stopping the process? The discovery didn't answer anything. It only exposed the cracks. And one crack, growing deeper every day, was about to change everything the detainees thought they understood about Rikers, the virus, and the system supposedly designed to protect them. The lists spread through the dorms like contraband, passed hand to hand with the same urgency as a lifeline. But the more detainees studied them, the more one truth settled over Rikers like a heavy fog: the system deciding who lived and who stayed behind was not built for fairness. It was built for speed, pressure, and political optics. Inside 3 East, the mood shifted from fear to quiet calculation. Men who had never spoken suddenly traded stories about their charges, their medical issues, their court delays. They tried to make sense of a process happening miles above them, in offices filled with people who had never touched a bunk bed in a jail dorm. Every man waited for a knock on the gate, a name called, a chance at freedom that felt both within reach and impossibly far. Meanwhile, the virus kept slicing through the facility. Entire units were quarantined with barely any supervision. Officers were reassigned daily, sometimes hourly, to plug staffing holes too big to hide. Some came into work visibly sick because staying home meant the dorms would be abandoned. Others quit outright. The jail's machinery, always shaky, was now grinding on fumes. Then, one afternoon, the PA system crackled with an announcement no one expected. A list of names. Dozens. Some from 3 East, some from other units. These were the emergency releases, approved at last. Men stood frozen as the names echoed across the dorm. A few broke down in tears. Others stared blankly, unable to process that they might be walking out of Rikers within hours. But for every man called, there were 2 who weren't. That divide cut deeper than any lockdown. It exposed the painful truth that survival in Rikers during COVID wasn't just about health, it was about timing, luck, and paperwork that moved too slowly for a virus that moved too fast. As the newly released packed their few belongings, the rest of the dorm watched silently. No bitterness. No anger. Just the heavy understanding that everyone was trapped in a crisis bigger than them. One man whispered, "If you get out, don't look back." Another replied, "I won't. But I won't forget either." The next morning, the dorm felt emptier. Not safer, just hollow. Fewer bunks filled, but the virus still lingered, crawling through shared air and damp coughs. Medical teams continued to fight a battle that had already outrun them. Some detainees grew sicker. A few officers never returned. The outbreak had become a mirror, revealing everything Rikers tried to hide: overcrowded dorms, understaffed clinics, and a system stretched beyond its breaking point. When the infection curve finally slowed, the scars it left were undeniable. Families mourned loved ones who never made it home. Activists demanded the closure of the jail with renewed force. Even some officers admitted privately that Rikers was no longer a place anyone could pretend was functioning. The truth was simple and devastating: the pandemic hadn't broken Rikers. It had revealed what was already broken. If you think this story was intense, the next one will leave you speechless. Subscribe for more true crime stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat.